So it appears Pat McAfee is riding with Aaron Rodgers all the way. For those of you who've been enjoying your holidays and haven't tuned much into sports in 2024, there was a ton of drama on the Pat McAfee show recently when he had Aaron Rodgers on last Tuesday, and it had something to do with the recent unveiling of the Jeffrey Epstein client list that was about to be exposed. Here's a short clip from that segment.
This has something to do with the Epstein list that came out?
Feels like.
That's supposed to be coming out soon.
Look, this guy's been waiting in his wine cellar.
Yeah.
I've been waiting in my wine cellar for this thing.
A lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't.
All right.
Okay, so that was Aaron making a little insinuation that Jimmy could have been on that plane, which as of now, since the first rollout of the Epstein list, his name was not on the list, but more names will be dropping later. And I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers was saving this shot because of what Jimmy had said to him 2 years ago during the whole vaccine issue with the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers reportedly received a homeopathic treatment over the summer instead of the vaccine. You know, we should have known, because nothing says I heal myself with crystals like this haircut. I mean, that little knot on top. Aaron is a Karen. That's the fact of the matter.
So that's the Aaron Rodgers Jimmy Kimmel beef in a nutshell, and Pat McAfee the next day on his show gave a half-hearted apology that his show sometimes gets carried away with all the fun and jokes. And what makes this even more funny is that Disney is in the middle of all this because they own ABC, the network Jimmy Kimmel has a show on, and right now they are partnered with the Pat McAfee show, and all these sound bites from Aaron Rodgers is slowly starting to cause a headache for Disney. Anyways, so with that said, Pat McAfee today on his show dropped a huge bombshell when he went live and told his audience that an ESPN executive was trying to sabotage the show. Have a listen to this clip because this honestly sounds like Pat has had enough of ESPN and is maybe looking to send a strong message to the network, because I don't see any other reason for him to publicly announce this on his show.
We're very appreciative, and we understand that more people are watching this show than ever before. We're very thankful for the ESPN folks being very hospitable. Now, there are some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN.
Funny.
More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson is the guy who is attempting to sabotage our program. I'm not 100% sure. That is just seemingly the only human that has information, and then somehow that information gets leaked, and it's wrong, and then it sets a narrative of what our show is, and then are we just going to combat that from a rat every single time? I don't know, but like somebody tried to get ahead of our actual ratings release with wrong numbers 12 hours beforehand. That's a sabotage attempt, and it's been happening basically this entire season from some people who didn't necessarily love the old edition of the Pat McAfee show to the ESPN family.
Sure.
There's a lot of those. We've heard them anonymously quoted in the Washington Post, in the New York Post, in the New York Times, in the LA Times, in Wall Street Journal. And they're never like, yeah, love the show.
This is awesome.
It's always like little things to try to tear us down. So even with the enemy within our own camp, somebody that I don't like that guy. That guy left me in his office for 45 minutes, no-showed me in 2018. So this guy has had zero respect for me. And in return, same thing back to him for a long time. So even with that taking place and potential PR, like we're still growing somehow.
Yep.
So we're very thankful.
Yeah.
I think we're doing it right. We're trying to do it as right as possible. We have good intentions every single time we come in here. We don't always get it right, but motherfuckers been getting it wrong for a long time in this specific field. Long time.
Every day. Every single day. What do you mean? Like you said, you have the right intentions. Like, we're trying to sit here and have fun and talk about sports.
Bingo.
And Connor and other stuff as well might pop in here or there.
Every now and
We
then.
can stay away from those.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to talk about them.
Okay, so you gotta hand it to Pat. He does not mince his words and calls out those he wants to publicly. Maybe there were times when he effed up and got petty, like the time he went at Brett Coleman, and honestly, I was one of the naysayers who thought Pat would change since partnering with ESPN, but since then, he's been more or less the same. Saying what he said on the air, I think he just told the brasses at ESPN that he doesn't need them. Pat is self-made and built his empire himself, and I think is riding and dying with Aaron Rodgers after all the negative pushback the mainstream media had towards Rodgers and his show. I mean, can you ever imagine a guy like Skip Bayless when he was at the height of his popularity, or even Stephen A. Smith publicly calling out their respective network executive and calling them a rat? This is just absolutely insane. Pat has some huge balls for doing what he did on his show, and I think some of that beef with Norby Wilson goes back to 2018 when Pat said he was left hanging in Norby's office for 45 minutes and then pulled a no-show. If you know anything about Pat McAfee, it's that he's super petty and he holds grudges. Pat talked about this during his rant when he first tried to get on ESPN back in the day, but they turned him down. That's why a lot of his fans were upset, because he always told them that he would never work for a company like ESPN. Anyways, all this conversation about Norby was most likely spurred by the fact that a New York Post article came out Friday calling out the Pat McAfee show ratings and saying that it was not good enough to be worthy of the controversy he brings to the network with all the things he and Aaron Rodgers have to say. And I think Pat believed Norby was the one who was feeding the Post this information and leaking the numbers, because he's the only human, according to Pat, that has this information. So it appears it's no secret that Norby will conspire against talent he does not like, which even former ESPN host Jamel Hill agreed to. That said, there have been a few other media personalities like Stephen A. Smith and Nick Wright talk about this issue involving Pat, and I want you to listen to what they have to say.
Long story short, Aaron Rodgers goes on Pat McAfee's show, weekly, by the way. And on this particular situation, which was yesterday, he basically talked about how, Jimmy Kimmel, the great Jimmy Kimmel, late night host Jimmy Kimmel, wasn't looking forward to the list. And I'm trying to look for the quote right in front of me. I had it right in front of me, so I apologize if I don't have it at this particular moment. I'm trying to find that. But essentially, Aaron Rodgers said something, to be quite honest, that he should not have said. And before I go any further into this particular topic, let me first let you all hear Pat McAfee a day later responding to the whole brouhaha Aaron Rodgers' appearance on his show and his words about Jimmy Kimmel may have created. Take a listen to this.
But I can see exactly why Jimmy Kimmel felt the way he felt, especially with his position. But I think Aaron was just trying to talk shit. Now, did it go too far? And a lot of people, Jimmy Kimmel certainly said that was the case. We and I immediately upon it happening, trying to be like, But that is Aaron and Jimmy. They've been
jousting a bit.
I don't know, So, we obviously don't like the fact that we're associated with anything negative ever. We like our show to be an uplifting one, a happy one, a fun one, but it's because we talk shit and try to make light of everything. Some things, obviously, people get very pissed off about, especially when they're that serious allegations. So we apologize for being a part of it.
So the story has been, how is this going to affect McAfee's show? They're going to have to cut ties with Rodgers. What is Jimmy Kimmel going to do? That's not the story. That might be a sub-story. That might be interesting in the media trades. The story is Aaron Rodgers, who is undeniably one of the most famous athletes in America today, arguably the single most powerful player in the single most powerful league we have, has crossed the Rubicon from wacky conspiracy theory guy to malignant force in the culture, and nobody seems to have batted an eye.
Anyways, what do you guys think about this whole situation regarding Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel, Pat McAfee, and this ESPN executive? And is Pat McAfee regretting joining ESPN?